Hi listeners, please stay tuned.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, Dr. Ashwin. You are a key member of India Against Corruption. You played a big role in lending to Anna Hazare in his fight for the Jan Lokpal bill. Lending support to Anna Hazare in his fight for the Jan Lokpal bill. Are you still active?
I think it's not the kind of thing from which you can ever become inactive. The fight against corruption has existed for many years and will continue to exist until it is finally subdued. Anna has brought a level of attention to it, which is remarkable. And if people like me threw our soul into this campaign to support it, it's because we believe that maybe through a sustained intervention at a very intense level, it is possible to cross this important bridge and get a Lokpal and a Lokayukta in every state in place. And I think we're about to see that happen. Parliament has promised to do this. And at the end of the winter session, if we get this legislation, then I would say that's not bad. If you remember, in 2010, in December, less than a year ago, when Arvind and Dr. JP had come here, and we organized the SAKU anti-corruption rally. To my knowledge, that was the first time we spoke about it and talked of the idea of having public campaigns in every city. And at that time, there was even talk of consolidating voters around anti-corruption themes. And so I look at it and I say, and that's not bad for a year's work, that if you can say that what seemed like a local thing being done in one city has caught the imagination of the public across the whole country, and a national movement led by Anna has brought legislation to the doorstep of Parliament, I feel we achieved something by this intervention.
But Dr. Ashwin, Anna's close associates are embroiled in controversies.
Yeah.
Doesn't it weaken the movement? Doesn't it hurt you?
No, I don't think it weakens the movement. It certainly distracts from the goal that you are pursuing. But these controversies, there are two things about these controversies. These controversies exist because, A, it's easy to confuse the facts in public. I can say something about you and you can say something about me. And as long as the debate is about who is right, it will seem to some people that you are wrong and it will seem to some people that I am wrong. Unfortunately, this is true in public life. The second reason is that people in this country are still struggling to internalize rights. What do I mean by that? You may say that I believe, followed by whatever it is that you believe. Now, I may not agree with it. I may not like it. But I don't really have the right to suppress you from saying that. We need to mature as a democracy to say that if some people say unpopular things, that they have the right to say those unpopular things. We may disagree, we can counter that, but we mustn't silence them. One of the things that happened with Prashant in particular, for example, there was this uproar that he was saying something that he should not say. We should never go down that road. Freedom of speech means that unpopular things should be protected from being suppressed. Popular things don't need protection, right? If you say something that 80% of the people agree with, you hardly need protection. It's only when you say things that 20% of the people agree with that you need protection. So this is a second problem. The third problem comes out of the campaign itself. It's a fact of life. Campaigns are intense. There's a lot of danda, there's a lot of flag waving, there's a lot of crowd mobilization, not only from the protagonist, but also from the antagonist. So you have a scenario in which things get said, right? There are guys standing on some stage and waving on flag and saying, "Main bhi Anna, tu bhi Anna." There's another set of people standing on a different stage and saying, "What is Digvijay Singh?" No, even the people of his state have rejected him. Why should we listen to him? So all sorts of things get said. Manish Tiwari said a bunch of things for which he later apologized. Things get said. That we have to learn in our political discourse to separate the things that are said as campaign rhetoric from the substantive issues. In fact, there would be less campaign rhetoric if you focused on the substantive issues. Unfortunately, the politics of today prefers to substitute one for the other. and say, why get into the substantive issues? We'll try to manage the campaign rhetoric. We'll try to manage the media. And once you get into this game of managing the media, it becomes who can manage the media better. Right? The other day somebody was saying, well, IAC only became strong when the media got interested in it. Of course that's true. But IAC was fundamentally the right thing to do anyway. The
media was forced to support.
Well, I wouldn't say forced. Media recognized it when enough people recognized it. It's not a matter of being forced to support it. It could be a matter of TRPs, although I don't think TRPs particularly changed. The distribution of TRPs may have changed, but I don't think TRPs itself changed. But I think this is the game, that we have to get into a space where we don't shout at each other saying, you are a fool and I'm an idiot. Instead, we have to say that your ideas are wrong for the following reasons, and my ideas are wrong for the following reasons, and have the debate on that basis.
Dr. Ashwin, Anna is insisting that the Lokpal bill must be passed in this session of Parliament.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, what is the future course of action that you all have planned?
It's,
For some reason it does not pass.
We are confident it will pass, number one. But if it doesn't pass, then the recourse is also fairly obvious. We will continue to keep up the pressure, and the Congress, being the leading party in government whose responsibility it is to introduce and move this legislation, the Congress will continue to receive much of the attention from the movement. And I know some people have said this amounts to campaigning against the Congress in particular. It's fact of life. If the Congress doesn't want to be in that position, they can vacate the government, and we'll campaign against whoever else is in government at that point. But the reality is that if one set of people have responsibility for legislation, it's up to anybody who wants that legislation passed to put pressure on that set of people. I mean, Congress should be proud that it is being asked to set up this legislation. It's the consequence of having won the election, right?
Dr. Ashwin, Anna led a campaign against the Congress, as you rightly said, during the Hisar by-elections.
Yeah.
The Congress candidate lost the deposit.
Yeah.
Why is he not doing during the upcoming Bellary by-election?
A set of complexities having to do with scheduling, health, campaign strategy, where the campaign is at various places. We have invited Anna to Karnataka, and we are trying to organize a 3-day campaign fairly soon if we can pull this off. It may or may not happen in time for the Bellary election itself. But certainly the goal is not to say that one set of people should be focused on as corrupt and another set of people should be left alone. We believe that Karnataka has unfortunately been one of the epicenters of the spotlight on corruption, at least in the last year and a half. And to the extent that it is necessary to say and do something about it, certainly we will do that. We've said some things in the recent past also about the Lokayukta appointments, unnecessary controversies about, he said, she said sort of thing. It will happen. Anna will come here too. And it's always the case, right? People say, why has he never been to Orissa or never been to Himachal? It's hard for me to say, why has he never been to these places?
No, why I asked you this question, Dr. Ashwin, is usually people say that Anna is tilted towards the BJP. If he doesn't campaign in Bellary, doesn't that send a strong signal?
It could be perceived that way, but I don't think that's the signal we are trying to send. Certainly, I believe, for example, that the kind of scenario that Mr. Sriramulu is sort of going through should not be allowed. A person should not be allowed to resign his seat and recontest the same seat. If he voluntarily created that vacancy, he should be barred from trying to fill it. By this logic, all this Operation Lotus also should not have been allowed. And I think some of this has to come into place in our electoral reforms. The idea that a person can change his affiliation after the voters have given their verdict is dangerous to democracy. Now, are we sending a signal by not saying something bad about this man or that man? It's hard to say. I certainly think the investigations against those accused of corruption in the mining scam should continue. It appears that they are continuing. At least 1 or 2 of them are locked up. I also believe that this is more a matter of the internal disputes in the BJP. That if you now get in and say this should happen and that should happen, it will be seen as taking sides with one of those sides in their internal battles also. So we don't want to get into the middle of that. Our stance is twofold. One, to say corruption wherever it exists must be tackled, but also to say corruption is the result of processes being flawed. It's not merely the result of one character here and another person over there doing wrong things. If you remove the errors in the process, if you say, for example, that public assets like 2G spectrum or mining licenses should have a certain amount of sanctity as a public asset and be protected as a public asset and managed in a transparent way, you will get outcomes that are also healthy. If you instead say discretionary, we are seeing with the judicial layouts thing, we are finding it hard to have a lokayukta, sir, in this state. I mean, this is a ridiculous scenario to say that we can't find a lokayukta because it's hard to come up with a judge who hasn't been through this problem.